Welcome to another episode of The Power of Choosing.
Today's topic is it time to change career? And this is one we wanted to talk about because I think there's a lot of times where something isn't working and we can just throw the baby out with the bathwater. I don't know if you've got that phrase in the US.
No, but it's a normal phrase. Yes.
Okay. um, it's like it's not feeling right, something's not working. Let's change everything. Quit my job, change career, and then you can watch a video and it can say how I quit my job and became this person that I've always wanted to be. And it's tempting and it can make you feel like the life you want is away from everything you're doing. And you need, in order to be happy, to take this big step of quit your job, change your career, and then everything will fall into place. And what we want to talk about today is there's a step before that you really need to consider. That's what's not working and why. And am I just going to take these problems, issues, whatever they are, with me to the next thing?
Mhm.
And then nothing will actually change, even though you've made this like massive change.
Yes, absolutely. There's so many things that popped in my head as you were saying all of that. First, starting with my own self of me repeating the same jobs over and over and over. And yes, it was like the same career. And having the same career, obviously, there's going to be some similarities, but it literally was the same. So I moved states here in the US, but I moved states and I took my old job and retransformed it into a new place that I was living. So it was like, what did I really change other than locations of where I was living? I literally had the same scenario. And then the second thing that popped into my head was a former client of mine. She had reached out to me and she was like, do I need a life coach or do I need a career coach? And I was like, I'm going to let you know I'm biased. And I think you need to start with a life coach because that's really going to help you then know what the career is. Because a lot of people think that life and career are different and they're actually the same in the sense like how you show up to work is how you're showing up in your personal life. But a lot of us don't see that difference.
I mean, I'm sat here and I did change career and it was the right thing for me. And I know there's people that want to change career and actually when you get down to it, they're in the perfect career and maybe it's their mindset or their attitude that needs to change. So I
Hmm.
had one where she like loved what she did, but she had this like layer of anxiety and work was stressful. And it was because she didn't realize how amazing she was. So she was going into work and having all these ideas and all this brilliance, and she wasn't able to really to put it out there and to show people how good she was. And then she'd be passed up for promotions, and it was all just feeling like icky. And it had her questioning, is this even right for me? And when we discussed it, it was, but this is my perfect career. And the reason was she just wasn't showing up in the way she could. So then after a few months of coaching and her realizing like her own brilliance and transforming the way she sees herself, she was able to show up completely differently. And that changed everything. So the career stayed exactly the same, except she was now going for promotions that she never would, and she was getting them, and she asked for a raise and she got it because people finally saw her for who she was all along. She just didn't see it for herself.
Totally. I was like, she was the one that actually didn't see it. And she could
Mhm.
probably stand a little bit different, kind of the power pose that we've all talked about before, whereas that there's that power pose. She was standing different. She was showing up differently and she was embodying who she was bringing to the table where she wasn't connected with that. I can see where like fear blocks, all of the things were keeping her held back. And so really retouching with herself gave her that space to really stand in that. I think that's a beautiful story and happens to many people is like I know I do it too. So I'm calling myself out here where I start to see myself in a different way and that's just really fear speaking, but I can't always see it at the time that that's fear speaking until I talk about it and so forth. So,
Yeah, and it's why what we're talking about in all our episodes is so important because this is the power of your mind.
Hmm.
And your situation doesn't even have to change for everything to change. And this is why it's a conversation because sometimes you're in a job and it's not aligning, it's not working, and maybe there's things that don't work and there isn't anything you can do about it. And then we definitely say, yeah, maybe it's time to quit your job or put things in place to then change career. And there's going to be lots of other times in your career where it might just be some tweaks of mindset or tweaks of expectations of people or getting really clear on what you want so then you can go and ask for that thing that you want.
I think a lot of times people want certain things from jobs, but just more focus on the what you don't want. And that actually can keep you from getting the things that you do want. So it's like really discerning for yourself, what is it that I do want? Choosing what it is that fits and what aligns with you. So that alignment really comes back into play for even for your career. And yes, there's roles that we're doing when we're working, but there's pieces that are aligned to like what's our best for us. And so really being able to discern what's aligned for us.
And this is what I love about life coaching. So there's no simple answer to this question, and it's not a
Never.
one size fits all. So it's
Yes.
like, should everyone quit the career? Maybe, maybe not. And this is where we get super curious with our clients. And okay, you're telling me all this stuff, and my boss is shit, and this is awful, and I have to do all this work, and it's so tedious, and it's blah blah blah. And it's listening to, okay, what's going on? And
Hmm.
where are you like framing things in a way that could be framed differently? And getting really curious of the, okay, what's going on for this person? And and then go from there. Then find the answers to the questions, not just this like reaction of like, I've been stuck in it for 6 months, it's awful, I'm drained, I'm tired, I'm getting ill, I need to change.
Right. Right. It's what's really fun is right now I'm working with a client that this is actually what we talk a lot about. And we have been talking about different things, but now she's in a place where she wants to change careers and she's not quite sure what that next step is going to be for her. She's not necessarily loving what she currently does, but that's not necessarily true. So we kind of work through this magical place of like, what are the parts that you do love? What are the parts that like really speak to you? And what brought you to the job that you currently have? And getting back in alignment with what, how, and what she wants in a career. And it may be the same thing and it may not be. It just might be the company that she's no longer aligned to. And so we're really working through this magical space of seeing how her creativity may be in the same field, it might be in a different one. And so we actually were playing and she brought up a new idea that kind of came to her. And I was like, ooh, this is kind of fun that we get to play in this playground. And right now, her focus is currently she's working on her communication. So she knows that her role is not to keep repeating the same things over and over. And so that's her mission currently while we continue to work on what could be the next role for her. And so her working on communication is building a muscle that she has not had, at least in this time of her career, to like feel confident in that communication. So we're working on that. And I just know it's all going to fall in place because that's how like life works. And so it's just a really fun place is like, yes, I know she wants to change careers, but she's really working on herself. So who she shows up at the next job will be aligned with who she is, who she wants to show up with, not like all of the hurts that she's had at her current role and a lot of that micromanagement aspect that's happening in there.
Mm. Yeah, and I love that, like the working on yourself. And so and
Yes,
it takes an ownership of like maybe I'm the problem, which
yes,
feels uncomfortable. So it's
yes.
really easy to be like, I hate my job because my boss is this, or because the people don't respect me, or whatever it is, like the work's tedious. And it's that's really easy to say, like blame someone else. And the
Yes,
hard part is to say, oh, I hate my job, and maybe it's because of my communication. Or
right.
maybe it's because I don't believe in myself enough to show up and I'm like opening my chest, like the power pose, like show up in a way that says, I've got this, you can trust me.
Hmm.
And I'm not showing up like that. So maybe that's why my boss isn't giving me the big projects and they don't trust me because
Hmm.
I'm that's not the energy I'm giving off. So it's not a blame game. It's a, okay, what am I doing in this situation that I could change so that then we can see if then everything changes? Because
Hmm.
most likely it will.
Yes. What's interesting there is, and kind of tying back to that client, is that they feel that their voice isn't heard. And who can identify with that? I know I hear that all the time
Mhm.
in my core of my being. And when you don't feel heard, like you start to see things from other people, and it kind of keeps like rippling effect of that same story going on there. So that's the work that I'm having her do as we cultivate her next step in her career. Is like, okay, she had direct order to really be able to like, I want you to investigate what's going on here. Like, I know that your perception is this, so I need you to take a look at this so I can hear from you next time, and like we can find out, is this a you thing? Is it a them thing? How can we address this? And that's this beautiful part, is going back to what I was saying earlier in regards of how you show up anywhere is how you show up everywhere. So how you show up personally is how you show up professionally, but we don't typically see that. And so when we can actually be in full ownership of how we're showing up, it really can make that impact. And I'm excited to see how it unfolds, and we'll see.
Mhm. Yeah, and with the right starting point, then like anything is possible. Like you can transform your life without changing anything, like I
Yes,
said. So I
yes.
think now my answer to the like, is it time to change career is no, not until you've done the work to figure out what it is that makes you want to change.
That's so interesting because I don't think that was necessarily what you were coming into this conversation with the answer as. Is that correct?
Yeah, but my initial was like, it's a maybe yes and a maybe no. And I
Yeah,
think it's actually important for it to be a no to start with, unless there's like something horrible abuse or whatever going on that like we need to get you out. Um,
right.
but if it's a things are starting to feel a bit icky, not really align, I'm not progressing, I'm not getting where I need to be. The
Hmm.
first step is a no, it's not time to change career until I've looked into what's happening. And then it may be totally a yes and it may be a no.
Absolutely. Well, once you know more where your direction is or what you're tied to, it's going to give you a very clear answer. But a lot of us don't take that moment to step back, pause, and actually really see. So we just like want to jump to the next thing, especially in our world where everything's instantaneous. We
Hmm.
are ready to do the next thing. I mean, I think of my parents, they had the same job for like most, my mom specifically had it for her whole career, whereas my dad did move around a little bit. And I don't, my mom was unique of an older generation is, but a lot of people move jobs constantly. And so you're going to find the same things at the next job if you actually don't take the time to pause and really see like what you're contributing to the table.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's like what's the checklist for people to think about? So you're thinking about changing career. We're going to pause, and these are the things you need to think about.
I think the first one that came to me as you were asking that is just a space of like, it's a very simple thing, which is something that always gets overlooked, is like, what do I truly want? And that's the place to start with. And you have to quiet enough to hear what your intuition, what your own self is really wanting is like the first step, at least for me. For you, what do you see as kind of the trajectory for changing careers?
I love the exercise where you have a piece of paper and you have a what's working well and a
Ooh,
what's not working well. And you
okay.
write down all the things that are working well and then all the things that are not. And it gives you a really clear idea of what is good for you. And you can start by doing more of the things that are working well and less of the things that are not.
Okay. I love that. How can they discern between the two sides?
Good question. It's a like thinking about what brings you joy and what's draining of energy. So it's the
Okay.
things that, okay, when I think about this, does it light me up? Am I excited? And on the opposite side, does it like fill me with dread and do I just not want to do it?
Yeah, I think that's a really great way to go at it is like what's draining you, what's exciting you. Like that is really gonna be helpful towards it.
Yeah, and then like with that, there's like a really close step, which is the looking at the what's draining and deciding is it because it's not aligned or is it because something else is at play? And there's something else could be, okay, is it draining because I'm filled with anxiety because I don't feel good enough? And is that
Mm.
true? So then this is where it's we're doing this exercise, and as we're doing it, we're questioning everything as we go along.
When we're questioning everything, what does that look like for our listener to be able to question everything is really the thing that kind of comes up for me in this space.
Yeah, and it's a good question because I realize that I'll set an exercise and I'm like, but then I'm not there to guide them through it. So I have to be really specific. I think it's the you can even write down, is this true? Or
Yes.
what's going on for me here? The obvious example is, am I filled with stress and anxiety when I'm going into meetings with the higher up people, the partners or whatever? And it's what's going on for me here. I don't feel prepared enough. I don't feel good enough, or I don't want to be in that situation. And then these are going to give us clues to actually, is me being in these high powered meetings or public speaking, is this just something that doesn't align with me and doesn't make my soul happy? It's a clue to maybe this job isn't for me. Or is this because I don't feel good enough? And actually, I just really need to remind myself that I do really well in meetings. People always say, like, good job when I've done a presentation, and I feel differently afterwards. And is this just my fight or flight response coming in? So it's this like, it's subtle and it's discerning.
It is subtle, and that's kind of where my brain is going is that I'm not good enough is like this really like that's really hard to work through because when we have that in our head of I'm not good enough, we think everything is true and it's actually not true. And it's hard to discern between the difference. And so it really does, it's like this dance to do. And for me, it's actually the space I love with working with clients is really helping them see through that. It is at times when that I'm not good enough, it's hard to see it on our own. So that's just my own personal bias towards life coaching that I have of it really does help to work through the I'm not good enough aspect.
The takeaway is it's not a simple just quit my career, my life's going to change for the better.
Right,
The You might take all your problems to the next career
right.
if you don't think it through and really do the work and figure out what's going on first.
The good and the bad is like us as humans, we're not a five-step process to get to da 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 da. So like it's there's so many nuances in the space. So it's really like starting to really know who you are. So when you do take that next career, if that's what you end up doing, you're showing up in your full authentic self in that role, or as we keep saying, aligned in that role.
Thank you for listening to our podcast, The Power of Choosing.
Today's episode was all about, is it time to change careers?